Here we are. Three, two, one. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're doing well on this lovely Tuesday. It is nice and cool here in Southern California. Not raining like last time. My voice is much better. So I'm feeling better than I was last Tech Tuesday. But nonetheless, thank you so much, guys. And I have you live here on Instagram and also on YouTube. And if you don't follow me here on YouTube, Instagram, friends and family, when we're done, please go on board, subscribe at the Bisimoto YouTube channel, and we can make things happen. Hello, Sean Lee 768. For those of you who don't know Sean Lee, what a great guy. He's like a brother to me. He's someone who got me into the Purist group, dedicated to really philanthropy. This guy helps anyone who's in need, puts together toy drives that gives great opportunities for children all across the globe. Hardcore enthusiast, very successful businessman. Thank you so much, Sean, for joining. Appreciate you indeed. What's up, 1 of 5,000? Good seeing you. Yo, Teresh581. Thank you, JP78521, who says I'm the king of custom. Appreciate the kind words indeed. Dusty, VIP, courtesy of the United Kingdom. Thank you for joining us from all across the pond. Appreciate you indeed. All right, so here is another great Tech Tuesday. I do this to give back. When I came to the United States as a student, I wanted to learn about cars because it was my passion. People didn't want to help me. Very few individuals, like Sean Lee does with many people nowadays, very few individuals gave me the time of day and taught me everything I need to know. So I use this platform to be that person I needed when I was younger. And I share everything I know, guys. I mean anything. Anything you have about any of my project cars, technology, my experiences, my trials, my tribulations, even my failures, which I tend to learn from significantly. My failures are actually something that has allowed me to grow within this scene and do more as well. And here's my friend Kovolt, hitting the ground running, fellow engineer, hardcore enthusiast, EV specialist, love him very much. He says, still hoping for the HV contactor box walkthrough. Ah, ha, ha. That's so good. I should probably do that next week. What's my source for low voltage signal wires and high voltage 4-aught cables? So I've been using a lot of 2-aught and double-aught recently. So 4-aught I haven't. There's a company that's out in Texas. Oh my God, the name of the company escapes me. But for the local guys, if you're not buying in tons of bulk, because if you're buying spools, you can get it from this organization in Texas. If you're not doing that, companies like, who's a good one? Revolt out in San Diego. They can sell small sections for you. They have 4-aught, 2-aught, double-aught. They have both of them, all three of those in stock. And you can reach out to him. The owner's name is Eddie, good guy. I buy some components from him from time to time as well. He's a good one to definitely look out to. And speaking of contactor boxes, he has a pretty clever one that's really compact. I need to play around with that as well. In terms of low voltage signal wires, I do quite a few things. I have, in terms of signal, I don't know if you want to turn on a DC to DC, is that what you're using? Or are you talking about low voltage signal wires to your contactors? Because there are two ways I've done that, through a VCU directly, and also one of my favorites, through a PDM. So kindly share some more insight on your question, and I'll be more than happy to expound on that at liberty. Okay, let's see here. There's something I want to share with you guys. Something that I feel, which is quite sad, but shouldn't be, the most disrespected component in an internal combustion engine build. I repeat, the most disrespected, and this thing demands a lot of respect, component in internal combustion engine builds, and it is this, the lowly valve spring. This is a single cam valve spring, one of our designs that we use. This one in particular is for the D16 A6, and it's a single spring, which does a great job. It's linear, not progressive. Progressive means that the seat pressure is very low, and as you go out in terms of lift, it gets stiffer. This is a linear stiffness from seat all the way throughout the range of motion, which is pretty good. Some love on YouTube here. MSC15 say, very long time since you opened the stream. How are you doing? How have you been? What you been up to? Doing well. Was ill. That's why I was away for a couple of weeks. I had COVID, which is pretty annoying. still recuperating from that. But I'm back alive and well, which is pretty nice, you know? There's another question from Bethel. Can I make close to 200 horsepower on pump 93 gas on a built A6 head and P29 pistons? Or should I run a PG6? PG6 will give you a lot more dome volume. The best to do, in my opinion, is to use a forged piston with a perfect dome height, because when you use the PG6, the compression height is not quite precise, you know? But using a purposely designed piston for your motor and head application can get you to that goal very nicely. The one thing, if you're going NA and you want to get to 200 horsepower, is camshaft. You need something very aggressive to be able to meet that power goal and exceed it. So once again, about the valve spring, something that is very, very disrespected. And the reason why I say disrespected is because many times people come to me to buy components for their builds. Either they're boosting, doing high RPM activity, and the last thing they talk about are valve springs. But think about what this has to do. This very simple component, what it has in terms of tasks in the internal combustion engine. This is the only thing that prevents your valves from getting out of control. So it has the additional chore of keeping valve train assemblies intact. So make sure that your valve sits on the head to allow for sealing and for heat exchange. It keeps your valve from going crazy upon high lift. It keeps your valve from ski jumping off of the profile of a camshaft at high RPM or even medium RPM activity. It does that all with heat. And then when you boost, imagine this, the pressure that is hitting the back of the valve, this has to keep that intact as well. So why am I sharing this with you and why is this so important? Because the valve spring, especially with the engines we build in a lot of our small compact cars that have 100, 200, 300,000 miles, we have no idea how annealed, how soft those springs are. This is one of the first things that you should upgrade in your internal combustion engine build. You should upgrade your springs, and they're pretty cost effective. Ours is a little bit over 150 bucks for a set of 16, for the D series, the F series, the H series, you name it. The A series, even for the A series brothers and sisters, we do have valve springs for them. So make sure you upgrade this. If you're boosting, it is absolutely unexcusable not to upgrade it. Don't just throw in a turbocharged system, do your pistons and rods, and leave your head stock. You'll notice in high RPMs, your boost capabilities may dwindle quite a bit. You may notice at high RPMs that your RPM band kind of falls off rapidly in terms of power. This is the reason why. It's such a very simple upgrade. It's what you should do. And honestly, guys, I learned that the hard way. You don't believe how many valves I dropped before I learned that. As a matter of fact, I remember racing at Carlsbad Raceway not too long ago, or many moons ago, and I dropped the valve while racing, and I drove from Carlsbad to LA with a hole in my piston, oiling up, just smoking the entire time, filling up with oil and keep driving because I didn't have a trailer at the time as a student. And it was quite unfortunate. I also got reported as a gross polluter for all the smoke I was doing in the back. But if I had an upgraded valve spring, that would have been prevented. Because I had high RPM duty, my valve just kissed the piston a little bit because I had factory springs, knocked out my retainers because the keepers weren't in place, and I dropped the valve. And it ended up being quite expensive. A lot more than 150 plus bucks, you know? So that being said, just wanted to share that little bit of insight with you guys. So I appreciate you indeed. What level camshaft should I run, said Bethal. With that kind of compression, if you're running a Bisimoto style, it'd be a stage 3. A level 3 Bisimoto would be the way to go. Hello, Daryl from YouTube. Hello, Anthony Reyes. What's up to you as well? Appreciate you. Oh, my pleasure indeed, Bethal. Let's see here. Oh, so much love here. I appreciate all of you on Instagram. Thank you so much for all the love. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Referring to basically any wires under 12 volts for CAN bus, like the ISO-AP or 12 volt power to ground, etc. Well, if you're talking about what size wires I use, I'm trying to, Corvo, forgive me, I don't quite understand the question. Any wires under 12 volts, most of my whole systems typically run at 13.5. I tend to use, I'm trying to see what I did recently. I think I used a 12 gauge setup, 12 and 18. I do use a PDM at Liberty. As I mentioned to you before when you and I spoke live, I tend to use 2 type of PDMs, the Race Pack Smart Wire, and recently a Morris Tech or Y-Wire PDM as well. And I tend to use that to control everything in my entire system. 12 volt power, ground, I tend to use much thicker wires for the main power setups. I use four gauge for everything throughout my setup as well. For grounds, from the DC-DC converter to my chassis, from my cradles to the chassis as well, from my battery systems all the way to the positive of my DC-DC. I use 12 gauge as well, not 12, but 4 gauge as well. All my contacts are gold. I crimp them properly and seal and grow them where I need to. And I think that's about it. If you need more insight, please let me know. But I definitely like to go over with you what my contactor box looks like and kind of the entire pathway. I did give some insight on my most recent K3V setup with Jay Leno. So I did go through that, but I'd be more than happy to do that here as well to provide some insight. Sega Watts, hello to you as well. Thank you so much for catching it live. I appreciate you indeed. Blue Top Performance, Ace 22, what a great guy. He is an amazing individual, resides on the East Coast of the United States, Florida, if my memory serves me correctly. A true family man, this chap is, gets his kids involved, which I love, in his engine builds and motorsports endeavors. And that means a lot because I'm starting to notice that a lot of kids are not interested in driving. I couldn't believe how long it took me to even get my license because I was so involved in trying to drive and have a lot of fun with a car. Nowadays, a lot of kids are just happy with Ubering or using a Lyft, and they don't really care or get excited about driving their car for the first time or going to the track and so on and so forth. But Blue Top Performance, Joe, is doing his own thing to make sure that he gets the youth involved, starting with his kids and neighbors, to make sure that they are intimately involved with everything motorsports and car related. So thank you so much, sir, for what you do. Okay. Tony Civic Project 88 says, is all motor D6 and Z6 Bisimoto cam and header still available from Norway? So my headers at this time, unfortunately, are not. I discontinued my Bisimoto headers years ago because I just got knocked off left and right. Very poor knockoffs. It's so sad. Companies that don't take the time to invest in their own technology will try to make a business out of copying and doing poor imitations of other people's products. And they pretty much just killed the market. So I kind of stopped that. Can I have my team kind of pivot back into making those? Maybe, if the demand dictates. But right now, all I have available based upon what you asked for are the camshafts. So if you're looking at the Z6 application, which you have, you can do level 1, which is very, how should I say, emissions friendly. Gives about a 5 to 7 improvement of power all across the board and doesn't affect emissions whatsoever. If you have emission standards in your country or your region, you can put this camshaft in, have a lot of power, nice power, 5 to 7% gain, and still pass emissions. Doesn't affect anything in terms of your activity for your hydrocarbons coming out of your tailpipe. Doesn't affect it at all. Level 2, which is one of my most popular grinds, those give about a 7 to 10% improvement in power. And to optimize that, you do want to tune it, not emissions friendly. Level 3 is definitely my most popular naturally aspirated setup. And that in particular, you definitely need some professional tuning. And level X is the full tilt, all out, all motor monster. That's the camshaft that I ran 10 seconds within a D series. That is the cat's meow. Nothing else better than it out there. And then on the turbo side, you have the level 1.2, which is a nice mild camshaft. Level 2.4 has a slightly loopy idle, and that's my most popular turbo cam for the Z6. And the level 3.6 is a full professional camshaft, which all 3 of those in turbocharging require some kind of tuning and can give you significantly more power than the competitors without losing spool. In an independent setup by our friends at Speed Factory, they did this themselves. I had no idea they were doing this test. They compared the Bisimoto level 3.6 and 2.4 versus other camshafts. They saw no loss in spool compared to stock, but like as much as an 80 horsepower improvement in power. 80 horses, which is pretty amazing indeed, you know? Anthony Reyes from YouTube says, BC, is there transmission adapter plate for a D series for all-wheel drive setup on EF or RK platform? No, there's not. I didn't make one. The only adapter plate system that we made was like an F to D, where you can put an H series or F series larger big block Honda motor onto a D series gearbox. We played a little bit with the B to D as well, but nothing in the all-wheel drive setup. The only thing that people have done is try, which is kind of hard to find, is the all-wheel drive setup from the wagon. And those came in D series, those bolt up. They're really, really difficult to find, especially the rear end differentials are almost impossible. It's like hen's teeth, you know? So yeah, no problem. Oh, you meant EK. For the EK, not an adapter for D series, no. I don't have that in stock, unfortunately. Okay, let's see here. Toyota. Oh, I think I missed your question, Armin Gami. If you could please ask that again, I'd be more than happy to oblige. Thoughts on a B16A? I think those engines are amazing. The B series is really known as the small block Chevy of the Honda world. So much aftermarket support, and the B16 gives you the high RPM capability that you'll love with smaller displacement engines without the small bores you see with the smaller D series that I love so much. So you have the heads that are very akin to what you see in a standard Integra, a B18, a GSR, LS, you name it, much better in terms of flow, but with the smallest displacement. Those engines are workhorses that they came in the Del Sols here in the United States as a premium model, and I like them a lot. B16s are one of my most popular, or most, how should I say, cherished twin cam engines that exist. Just really amazing. So, Ozaya, I like them a lot, and with the aftermarket support, it is absolutely spectacular. Jay Burger 23 says, love the wagon, I miss mine. Come to Utah and let me take photos of your cars. Utah's a bit of a trek for me to bring a bunch of cars to. If you ever visit the Southern California area and come to one of the meets, I'll be more than happy to oblige. Yeah, I love my wagon here too. This is my version 2.0. That's the one with a K-series setup and a sequential gearbox and all-wheel drive. The very first wagon I built, which was something that was a bit of a labor of love, came from a necessity in a competition we did with Super Street years ago, that Jonathan Wong was the editor-in-chief at the time. It was my goal to build a truly streetable, small displacement RPM engine, high RPM engine, to beat what AMS provided in a engine shootout from years ago. And just to share with you guys some insights around that particular competition, Source Interlink, now known as Motor Trend, but then with Source Interlink, had all these magazines: Turbo Magazine, Sport Compact Car, Import Tuner, Euro Tuner, I think there was Lowrider Magazine. There were all these magazines all together and under one umbrella, but had their own different facets. And Castrol, as a company that makes oil, had this competition they put together where they wanted to find tuners from all around the globe to build the most powerful engines with the most horsepower per displacement. But they had to survive a rigorous torture test. So I was representing Super Street. AMS, I think they had, I think it was Import Tuner, I believe. Sport Compact Car was represented by Cosworth. I think it was Ace Engineering, I think, was representing Lowrider. There's another one that did, anyway, there were quite a few. I don't remember who did Eurotuner. Anyway, there are all these companies that came together, and I was chosen for Super Street, which was a very powerful entity at the time. And I was quite honored to be able to do that. So knowing that there'd be a torture test, and this torture test was RPM hovering from peak horsepower to peak torque for an hour. I'm like, I'm gonna build an all-motor setup. I'm not gonna do turbo because turbo guys will blow up. Well, long story short, just to give you a short gist of that competition, the torture test wasn't done. People were scared that the engines would blow up and it'd make the companies look bad. So AMS built this 2.0 drag Subi engine. I did my F22A. I think I made 300 plus horsepower on pump gas on the F22A, natural aspirated. And horsepower per displacement, I did better than Cosworth, so I was pretty happy, right? And then the guys from AMS won, because I think they ended up making like, I think 700 horsepower with a 2.0 engine, but they were boosted. And I thought all the boosted guys were gonna blow up. But anyway, long story short, we went to SEMA, and they made fun of me, saying, hey, why did you build a turbo setup? I told them about the torture test. And it wasn't the owner himself. It wasn't Martin, the owner. It was one of his workers. And he said, oh no, you only did all motor because that's all you know. You don't know anything about turbo. I'm like, turbo is easier to, no, you don't know what you're talking about. So I got upset. So what I ended up doing, guys, was I said, I'm gonna take my bucket wagon. I had a white wagon with pink wheels, and my bucket I just drive around. And I said, I'm gonna do something with a D-Series turbo, and I'm gonna build that setup and do better than them. Full street, not some drag setup, full street, and I'll make 600 horsepower and a 1.6 liter. Well, long story short, on pump gas and water methanol, I built that setup, built it like a big NA setup with a big turbo on it, and we made 724 to the wheels on a D-Series. on pump gas and water methanol. And that was it. And it broke the internet. And that kind of made the crazy madness about wagons. I drove that around for a while. People tried to steal the wagon in typical Honda fashion, so I decided to part it out. And then I missed it. And then one day I had a meeting at K&N headquarters with the head of AEM filtration. And Chris Beatty, he suggested a version 2.0 and said I should probably update it. Go with a bigger engine like a K-Series, go all-wheel drive. And I said, you know what? Let's do it. And that was kind of the genesis of that project. And here it is in its glory. Not only is it turbocharged with a K-Series, a K24 all-wheel drive, it also has a sequential gearbox with all-wheel drive application. A blaster drive indeed. So yeah, that was my backstory around the building of this wagon, indeed. Do you have a Corolla 1.6 GTI? Says how do you say your name? Akbar Kibble? No, I do not. I don't even have any Toyotas in my arsenal at all. I was going to build a full AW11 MR2, but with all the projects I had on my plate, I ended up letting it go. So no, I don't have any Toyotas in house, fortunately or unfortunately. But Toyota USA, if you're listening, I've been more than happy to work with you and build something new and something old school and make some noise in the process. Chocolate Exec, hello, good seeing you as well. Thank you so much for joining this Tech Tuesday. Appreciate you indeed. What is your favorite stock Honda car? Bone stock Honda. If you were saying in the Honda conglomerate, meaning under its entire umbrella, I love the NC1 NSX. I love the latest NSX if you're talking about everything under the Honda umbrella. That car is amazing. The NSX is a hybrid of sorts in many ways of the word, no matter how you dissect it. It has a petrol V6 twin turbo engine and dual electrical motors power in the front. It can go in electrical mode and be very quiet. It's a lot of fun. It's just kind of wakes all the senses, but has all the advantages of EVs as well. It's just amazing. And the technology you would see in a Porsche 918, which is a 7-figure car, or some of the McLarens that have the same technology, which are also 7 figures, you can get in this low 6-figure vehicle. So I love that all. But if you're talking about Honda in itself, in terms of just the brand Honda, not just Acura sibling, which is the luxury division, I would say the Honda S2000. There's no car that I've ever driven that has such a positive, amazing feel of shifting as the S2000. Whether you're looking at the AP1 or AP2, that's my favorite bar none. In terms of being very utilitarian, you can't go wrong with the Odyssey. The Honda Odyssey is just amazing. I prefer that to anything else out there in terms of the van reading realm. But from a performance and fun perspective, by all means, the S2000, that's the one. Love it, love it, love it indeed. Love it indeed, You remember that magazine, says Anthony Reyes? Yeah, a lot of fun as well. B Thou says, show us your cars. That's gonna be I have 2 cameras and we have to walk around. I'll go out and come back in. Maybe we can do that sometime soon, but I appreciate that. There are a lot of vehicles here indeed. And a lot of them are very, very much fun. Okay, let's see here. Okay. Hey, BC, greetings to you as well. Sven, 1975. Good seeing you, brother. Hopefully you're doing well. Oh my God, Dapper 710. It's been a while. How are you? Good seeing you. Thanks so much for joining, indeed. Okay, let's see here. Okay. Took some photos of the VW at Tesla Takeover, Electronic Expo. Was hoping to see you there. I was there. I was there in San Luis Obispo. For those of you who don't know, the Tesla Takeover, I think this is the second time I've been there in San Luis Obispo at the Mardona Inn. It was a Tesla Takeover / Harley high voltage event. I had this wonderful EV van there. This thing makes 450 horsepower with a large drive unit inside of it. The interior looks absolutely stock. There's no kind of inkling that this thing is EV. It looks absolutely beautiful and it's on bags. You can see how slammed it is. It's slam tucked. Very nice vehicle indeed. So yeah, we had that on display. And also my Model 3 that's on bags as well. I had that on there. And so it's pretty good. FH is the way, says MCBB6. I concur. I love me some big block Hondas. Love them indeed. Especially when you have some modifications you can do to them to make them really go crazy. The F22A, the most power I eked out of that was 438 to the wheels. Without doing any kind of crazy fuels, just standard fuels, which is pretty nice indeed, It's beautiful, says Andrew M82. Thank you so much. Appreciate the kind words indeed. PM Power Solutions says, hey, BC, do you still make parts for the old school F-Series engines? Absolutely. The parts we have currently that we still have available for F-Series, we have our piston rod combo, which allows you to get a much better rod ratio than factory. So we have our custom rods with custom pistons made as well. We have the opportunity to make camshafts for you, anything you need. I was just talking about valve springs a moment ago. So we do have valve springs for the F22A as well. You need a clutch, we got you covered as well. Clutches, we have quite a few. And definitely, as you make all the power in the world, you need to be able to put it to the ground via the gearbox, right? So if you need clutches, we have you covered as well. Do you need help with injectors? No problem whatsoever. So just let us know what you need. If you don't see it on the website, write to us at sales@bisimoto.com, SALES @bisimoto.com, and we will get you situated. No problem whatsoever, you know? Anthony Reyes on YouTube says, BC, you should get into the K20C1 engine, the Type R crate motor. Those are pretty cool engines. The only challenge I have with the K20C, I don't like how the intake manifold goes above the exhaust manifold. So the turbo sits right there, the intake has to go across it, so you have a lot of heat soak. That's the only thing I don't like about the engine. In terms of power potential, I love it. You can push those engines very nicely into the low 400 to wheel range before you have to bend rods and do some kind of crazy things. But yeah, it's a very, very potent engine. I like them very much. How do you feel about the new Prelude, says McBB6, which it looks like a Prelude fan, which is great. I think it's gorgeous. And kudos to Honda for bringing that moniker back. The Prelude has always been known as the technological advanced model in the whole Honda lineup. And the fact they're doing that would be absolutely fantastic indeed. Ben French LA. Hello, Benny. For those of you who know Ben French LA, talk about positive influence. I mentioned earlier on how when I came to the United States, a lot of people wouldn't help me. And then finally, I got a few people who did take me under their wing. Well, as a hardcore Honda enthusiast, there was one particular individual who encouraged me to get into the European market, to get into the Porsches. Even though I had a poster of a Porsche on my wall as a child growing up, never thought I could ever afford, let alone even work on one. And Benny, who was a very successful entrepreneur, and even though he drove Porsches, did race Hondas, he'd come to me for tuning and for some other accoutrements. And this suggests like, hey, BC, I love what you're doing with the Hondas. Why don't you take that same creativity and out of the box thinking and go into Porsches? And with his support and convincing nature, I did get into Porsches. But my very first blue one with the big wing and the turbos hanging out the back. Many ways I built it like how I built my Hondas, but it really opened my eyes up to a new marketplace and allowed me to continue my success today. So Benny, thank you so much. I owe a lot of my success to you. In terms of your question in regard to why not put an alternator on two wheels to charge batteries while driving? Well, only because there are two different facets of that particular concept. One, in a straightforward manner, with exception of fission and fusion, energy cannot be created nor destroyed. So what that means is, if you have an EV and you have a battery propelling it forward, you're using energy that's stored in the batteries to move the vehicle forward. If you put an alternator in the other non-drive wheels, all you're doing is taking that same energy and putting back into the car, but consuming more energy to turn said alternator. So you're consuming energy from the alternator plus any losses that happen mechanically to charge up batteries to some extent. If you have an alternator or windings that are large enough to put decent amount of energy into it, it'll be akin to regen while moving forward, which means you're consuming a lot of energy to put energy in the batteries, and because of heat and also mechanical losses, you'll have a net negative, so it will not work very well. Secondly, the best thing that I have done with some of my project cars is to have the opportunity to use deceleration to put energy back into the batteries. And what that does is you have a moving object, which are typically heavy because most EVs are fairly heavy, especially the street-faring non-motorsport ones. And as you come to a stop, instead of braking using brakes to dissipate heat and also have the opportunity to, throw away energy and slowing it down, you can let off and allow that energy to go back into the tires. It's just into the battery, I should say, not the tires, but back into the drive unit, which most drive units have double duty of being an absorption unit and also a generator, which is pretty good, right? So that being said, yes, it's something you can do. It's just, in theory, it could come across as a very good perpetual machine, but the fact that we have to consume energy to turn the alternator, that is a best case scenario, net zero, worst case scenario, a net loss in terms of energy. So I hope that makes sense. I'll give you a call a little bit later on and share some more insights with you around that. But that's pretty much the concept around that. You have to mechanically turn the alternator, and that takes energy from the battery to do. And the energy consumed in doing that will be more than what you can put back in, which is quite sad, you know? McClebber say, hey BC, love your builds. Is there any advantage to using a coil and plug conversion on an NAB20 VTEC build? McCaleb, absolutely. There are advantages to that. So let's talk about something that has to do with spark energy. Let's talk about the distributor, which typically exists on a standard B series engine. Inside the distributor setup, you do have a single coil inside the distributor cap. Now that coil does a great job in dissipating spark energy to the spark plugs themselves via the spark plug wires, but needs time to recharge for the next cycle of discharge. The higher in RPM you go, the less time that allows for it to recharge, to then discharge. And how that manifests itself in the engine is a lower spark energy. And what happens with that, you tend to lose a little bit of power. We just take it as normal, it's no problem whatsoever, until we introduce coil plugs. With a coil plug, you have one particular coil, ignition coil, for each plug. Therefore, let's say the standard 1-3-4-2 spark order, you can fire and have time to rest for 3 more cycles before it's being ignited again. And how that manifests itself is into a higher spark energy, cleaner burn, and with the appropriate amount of fuel, more power. So what does that mean net? If you have a distributed setup and you're successfully able to convert to coil on plug, you will immediately see an improvement in power because you have a better spark indeed, you know, which is pretty good. What am I missing here? Oh my God, I see some Ever 3D parts, says Josh up. Yes, I have a, right there, a Flash Force 3D printer, and I do 3D print quite a few of our prototyping parts. If it's something that is a very low, how should I say, a product that doesn't have to be exposed to a lot of heat or harsh conditions, I can keep it in service. Even yesterday, I had a good friend of mine, Zach, finished printing out a little knob button for my shifter in the K3V. So yes, by all means, 3D printing is a very effective, fast way and an ideal way to be able to prototype parts and make things happen without going to severe manufacturing. Fox Design, etc. This is a gentleman who helped me with this wagon, by the way. If you look on the wagon, you can see, I don't know if you can see that, but on the rearview mirror is a nice little tag that he made for me. On the dashboard, I have this beautiful wood paneling that came from him. What a great, amazing, creative individual. BC, any plans for any petrol builds this year or all electric focused builds? So yeah, I do have actually 2 petrol cars. There's one that we're finishing up this year, which is domestic based. I don't want to give too much away. And then also, I'm building a twin turbo petrol Porsche as well. So even though I have great affinity for all things EV, I just love to go fast nonetheless. So I didn't throw all my petrol stuff away. I mean, for goodness sakes, I'm in front of one petrol car right now. And today is my way of commemorating Turbo Tuesday. But yeah, by all means, yes, I do have an opportunity to build 2 petrol cars this year, of which one of them will be at SEMA 2024 out in Vegas for the first full week of November in Nevada. King Mars says, hey, can you explain a bit on long rod all motor drag car benefits? Absolutely, I'd be more than happy to do that. So, there's a concept known as rod ratio, which is the ratio between the crank throw or stroke and the length of the rod. So ideally, you want to have the longest rod ratio possible to allow for many good opportunities. I did see one caveat through my numerous experimentation where a short rod motor does somewhat reign supreme. But let me talk about the general concepts of short rod versus long rod. Let's say you have a rod ratio of 1.5 to 1, which means your rod is about 1.5 length longer than your crank throw. What happens is your pistons tend to go ahead and move in a certain way with the bottom of the crankshaft, moving around and top piston going up and down. If you have a longer rod, here's what happens. You have the advantages of less side loading. So when your rod is much longer, doing the sweep of the crank on the bottom dead center or even top dead center, it doesn't tend to push or want to dig the piston into the side of the wall. So that's energy that's being conserved that can allow you to go faster and have a much more powerful engine setup. Second is you have a lot more dwell at top dead center and bottom dead center. Why is bottom dead center such a great thing in terms of dwell? Dwell meaning how much time it spends. With a longer rod, you have that bottom where the piston's at the very bottom. It takes its time before it starts moving up. That allows you to have better cylinder filling. On the very top of the swing of the combustion cycle, when there's a lot more dwell on top, you have a lot more time for that burn to propagate in the combustion chamber to then do work on the piston to push it down. Keep in mind, our internal combustion engines are nothing but energy converters. So you're taking the chemical energy from the oxygen and the fuel. Through ignition, you're creating this controlled explosion, and the heat and the force and the gases generated by the explosion does work on the piston to push the piston down to turn to mechanical energy that then turns the crankshaft that then propels your vehicle forward or backwards, depending where you're going, via the transmission. So that being said, dwell has a lot to do with that, not only in terms of longevity for a longer rod, but a dwell allows you to make a lot more power. And when you take apart two engines with the same displacement with a long motor versus long rod versus short rod, you will see less side loading or less scuffing on the side of the cylinders with that. I talked about where's the one caveat that I saw a short rod motor to reign supreme. It's a little bit of a secret, but I'll share it anyway because, like I mentioned, I'll share everything I know. Big ports. When you have very large intake ports in relation to your engine size with a corresponding large camshaft, at that point, long dwell at top dead center, bottom dead center, especially bottom center, doesn't help you that much because you have very low flowing ports. With a short rod motor and your dwell is much shorter, you can begin that ingestion of oxygen and fuel combined much sooner. And based on my experience, I have seen more power with a huge port large cam motor with short rods than I have with long rods. But that's a very small setup. Ideally, you want to have a head that flows as much as possible with the highest velocity. So bar none, a long rod motor based upon its advantages are the way to go. And I try to use long rod motors whenever I can. Even though I mentioned earlier on, the F22A long rod combo is something that we've developed and it helps people all around the world, which is pretty nice indeed, you know? Have you ever done a build with a JDM D15B Dual VTEC? I have built components for customers, but I've never had an engine myself in-house where I experiment with that. Not at this time. Okay, let's see. I really want to run call and plug on my fully built H23A. You can do that. You can do it with different type of engine management solutions. I know that Ryan from Rywire has a plate that allows you to adapt K-Series or S2000 coils into the valve cover of your setup. So it shouldn't be a problem whatsoever. If you have any further questions, just hit me up and I'll be more than happy to point you in the right direction. KG Hall says the legend. Thank you so much. Cheers to you. Appreciate the kind words. Well, guys, I must fly. It was just a slice of heaven. I'll have this up here and definitely here on Instagram and also on YouTube. And once again, friends from Instagram, if you don't follow us, please go onto YouTube. We typically share some great components and great insights on what we have going on here at the shop on that channel. In the meantime, I will see you next week, hopefully in a very cool location. And in the meantime, stay safe. And for those in Southern California, we have some rain coming this weekend. Please drive carefully, stay dry, and I'll see you next time. Take care, everyone. Cheers.